Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Bristol Township Zoning Hearing Board. I'd like to get started by doing the Pledge of Allegiance. Please remove your hats and stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, let me introduce a few people real quick before we get started. To my left is our solicitor, Ken Fetterman. Also with us is Director of L&I, Bob McTeague, our stenographer, Cindy Oliveira, and Mr. Secretary, can you call the board, please?
Sure. Andy Gorilla? Yes. Here. Mark DeMarcus? Here. Jim McMahon?
Here.
Colleen Dunn?
Here.
Ed Murphy? Here.
Okay, one other thing, if you could come up to the podium, when you come up to the podium, make sure the green light's on so we can hear your beautiful voices when you're speaking, and Cindy can hear you also. Got one housekeeping thing to do before we get started. We need to continuance on Agenda 3. Robert DiMicho, 2000 Reservoir Drive, Philadelphia, PA. So I need a motion to accept a continuance for March 2022.
I'll make that motion.
I need a second.
I'll second.
Need a second.
All right, call the board.
Andy Gorilla? Yes. Mark DeMarcus?
Yes.
Jim McMahon?
Yes.
Colleen Dunn?
Yes.
Ed Murphy? Yes.
Okay, thank you. So first on the agenda is William and Shannon, I'm sorry if I'm going to... Waskaloob, 8039 Leon Street, Philadelphia, PA. Please come on up. Yeah.
8039 is our current address, but it's not our future address.
Okay. Do you have your mail-ins?
I have the signatures.
Yeah, bring them up to the solicitor, please. Thank you.
Was the property posted?
Yes. Both sides.
You happen to have a picture with
I
you?
do, actually.
Okay, good.
I'm sorry.
That's all right, no problem. Okay, good, fine, thank you. We're good to go on that front.
All right, go ahead, your presentation. You can...
Okay, not much to it. We're giving this house back, and we're selling our house, and we're taking all that money and putting it into this house. Well, basically, I think what this is mostly about
Can
is
you
the
just
steps.
turn your microphone on?
What's that?
Turn your microphone on, please?
Sorry.
There you go.
Okay, I think mostly what this is about is the steps at this point. Which, okay, well, her parents live right next door. She has an autoimmune disease now. It's hard to walk, so we have a few steps instead of longer steps. We wanted it on the front of the house for them reasons. And if you've seen other houses on the block, they're a lot closer to the street than ours is. You know, so there's not really much to that. I mean, I would hope not. And as far as the residence goes, as anyone being opposed to it, one side of our house is her parents. The other side is their lifelong best friends and people she's known 40 years. So I don't think there'd be much opposition to that. So she actually spent part of her youth in the house we're getting right now, and her parents live in the house next door. So, if there's any questions,
So how many feet we talking here?
I believe it's 23 feet. I believe that's what it was. Which I think it said no closer than 25, but they were already closer to that anyway.
So it's 19 with the steps, I'm sorry.
Is that what it is? I'm sorry.
Then it says here 23 feet to the corner of the house.
Which if you were to see the property, there's plenty of room. And many properties on that block with steps closer to the street than ours.
Anybody have any questions? Okay. Bob, anything to add to?
Jim, pretty straightforward.
One other thing, well, a couple other things in the back is that we were trying to add a pool and a shed. And that's, I believe she also had mentioned that. I don't know if anyone mentioned that in here. We're not doing it as of now, but that would be a further variance. Okay. And as far as the shed is concerned, does it have to be, how do you do that? Can it be lifted up, or does it have to be a permanent structure?
What is the question, sir? I'm sorry.
If for a back shed, as far as that goes, because I thought I was going to have to answer to that as well.
Tonight?
So I thought I was supposed to.
The variance you have for is the front yard setback for the
That's the
porch.
only thing. Okay. All right. Well, then I guess that's all I have to say.
All right, so nobody has any questions? Go ahead, Andy.
I just want to be clear. So right now, the house sits 23 feet from the curb.
Okay.
The setback is 25 feet, so we're already not getting it. But you're asking for it to be, your front porch to be 19 foot from the curb.
If that's what the final step is, the first step up to the landing, then yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that's
Okay.
what you're asking.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Anybody from the audience like to come up and speak for or against this project? All right, I need a motion to approve or deny this application.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I need a second. All right.
Thank you so much.
Call the board, please, Mr. Secretary.
Andy Gorilla,
Yes.
Mark DeMarcus,
Yes.
Jim McMahon,
Yes.
Colleen Dunn,
Yes.
Ed Murphy, yes. Good luck,
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just remember, you need a permit for everything, so. Pool, shed, so, all right?
Thank you, Mr. McKenna.
We need anything else, or are we good to go?
We're good to go.
All right, let's roll it right along. Number 2 on the agenda is Brian V. Skill, 69 Apple Tree Drive, Levittown, PA. Come on up, please.
Thank you.
Yes.
How we looking, Ken? Good?
Good, yep.
All right, go ahead.
So today we're here to apply for variance for a 5-foot relief for our side yard setback for the construction of closing in our carport and adding a single car garage, attached garage. We've been in the home for about 8 years now, going on 9, and we just kind of grew in size, and we like to add to the house, also add to the value of the house, and in keeping with the neighborhood and all the other homes that are, building up around. And I guess that's really all I got.
Is your counsel here tonight?
He is not here today. He advised me on filling out the paperwork and everything like that. He wasn't,
I saw his name, so I thought.
yeah, he was unable to attend.
Okay. Is that all you got?
At this time, yes.
Yeah, I know, it's a little nervous. I understand.
Absolutely.
Okay. Anybody have any questions from the board? Bob, anything?
No question.
I do have a question.
Yes.
Are the neighbors okay with the expansion?
Yes, all my neighbors are okay. I have a neighbor here who actually came to speak on my behalf as well.
Okay. Does the board feel it necessary for his neighbor to come up? Would you like to hear from him?
Nope.
That's what I thought. Anybody else from the audience like to come up and speak for or against? Okay. All right, you know what I need now? Need a motion? I need a second.
I'll second.
Mr. Secretary, call the board, please.
Andy Gorilla.
Yes.
Mark DeMarcus.
Yes.
Jim McMahon.
Yes.
Colleen Dunn.
Yes.
Ed Murphy, yes.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Good luck, guys.
Thank you.
Just remember, you need a permit for everything, right? Okay. I don't want you guys to feel left out. All right, so we skipped number 3 on the agenda. Okay, number 4, Vonnie's Little Rascals LLC, 233 for Cynthia Drive South. Going up,
We're good on the mail-ins and posting.
all right. Counselor, you know what you gotta do, right?
All right. Good evening, Board. Happy Valentine's Day.
Samesy.
I know you're all just as happy to spend it with me as I am to spend it with you.
Where's the roses?
I wore pink. That's not good enough for you, Ken? All right. Thank you for being here. Bryce McGuigan of Begley Carlin here on behalf of Bonnie's Little Rascals. Bonnie's Little Rascals and Giovanni Colon, they're the owner of the property located at 515 Bristol Pike in Croydon. Property is zoned C commercial. It's approximately 6,100 square foot parcel and it's presently improved by a single structure that's about 1,800 square feet. The existing building was previously home to an electrical contractor. Now we are hoping to make it home to Giovanni Colon's proposed daycare, which is unsurprisingly going to be called Bonnie's Little Rascals. The daycare, as I have Giovanni here who will testify to it, but essentially what the plan is to have children there aged 1 through 5, no babies. And in terms of the actual property itself, we are only proposing to open up the second story. There's currently a 1-room and an attic up there. We're going to open that up, not expanding the footprint or anything like that. The only other exterior changes that we're proposing is the installation of a small play area in the backyard of the property. Essentially, the building itself is in full compliance with the zoning ordinance, and a daycare is a permitted use. But we're here because we need 2 small variances. The first involves the outdoor play area. Here in Bristol Township, if you're going to have a daycare, you need an outdoor play space of 200 square feet for every child that's going to be out there. We're proposing to have no more than 10 children outside at any given time, so we would need 2,000 square feet. What we have here is only enough for 988, so that's our first variance request. The second one involves parking. Pursuant to the ordinance, parking is calculated at 1 parking space per teacher, together with 1 parking space for every 6 children at the facility. We're proposing a maximum of 24 children, so 4 spaces for the teachers, 4 spaces for the children, so that's 8 in total. We are proposing 7 spaces, so we need 1 space, but as you'll hear when I go through this with Ms. Colon, we have 7 official spaces, but there's pretty much an extra space there too, which we'll talk about in more detail. So like I said, with that, I have my client here tonight. We're not really asking for a whole lot of relief, so I'll do my best to keep it simple, not always my strength. So with that, unless there's any preliminary questions, I'd like to bring up Ms. Colon.
I have a preliminary question. The parking spaces, listen, I know this property very well. I worked at Richard S. Brown Electric long, long time ago. Are you proposing 7 parking spots? Like, you're gonna put a driveway in, or there's not 7 parking spots out front?
Correct. There's 4 spaces in front, and we're, yeah.
I know you were gonna go through this, but it just,
Not a problem. Whoops. Testing. All right, that's better. So there's, a way we calculate it, there's 4 spaces in the front, and what we're gonna do is add 3 spaces to the rear. And I do have an architectural rendering to show that. And the spaces to the rear will be solely for employees, so the parents are not gonna be going into the rear of the property. The front area will be the designated drop-off and pickup spots.
okay.
All right, so with that, Ms. Cologne, could you introduce yourself to the board?
Good evening, my name is,
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you?
yes. Good evening, everyone. Jevonnie, last name is Colon. Thank you.
All right.
Try to talk into the mic, just because you're soft.
Yes,
All right. Ms. Cologne, thank you for being here tonight. You're the owner of Bonnie's Little Rascals, is that right?
yes,
And Bonnie's Little Rascals is proposing to open a new business, a daycare.
yes.
And now, if you could tell the board, why is it that you want to open a daycare? Do you have a background in it?
Yes, I have a degree in early childhood education.
All right. And since you got that degree, you've also worked at several local daycares over the years, correct?
Yes,
All right. So now you're trying to start up your own small business.
yes,
So about a year or 2 ago, you purchased the property at 515 Bristol Pike, correct?
yes,
And the plan is to open Bonnie's Little Rascals at that location, correct?
yes,
Okay. And part of the reason why you picked that location, is that because you grew up in Croydon?
yes,
You went to Truman?
yes,
You now live in Levittown?
yes,
So you want to open a business close to home, correct?
yes.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about the business that you intend to open so the board gets an idea of what we're trying to do here. Now, the business is going to be a regular old daycare, more or less, correct?
Yes,
Except there's going to be no babies here, right?
no babies.
All right, so ages 1 through 5, I believe?
Yes,
And you're planning on having a maximum of 24 children, correct?
correct.
Not going to go over that amount.
No,
And as far as hours go, it's going to be a Monday to Friday business,
yes,
no weekends,
no weekends.
and hours are going to be generally, let's say 7 a.m. to about 6 p.m., give or take.
Correct,
Now, in terms of staff, you expect to have around 4 teachers there at any time, correct? And the way you have it planned is you're planning 3 rooms, so 1 teacher for each room, plus kind of a floater.
yes, correct.
So let's talk a little bit about the property. I know the board's already mentioned it. I'm sure they're very familiar with this property, but I have some handouts here that might help everybody. All right, so Vonnie, I just passed out a 3-page pamphlet here marked A1 through A3. So the property, if you look at A1, is that how your building looks from the front?
Correct,
That's 515 Bristol Pike?
correct.
Okay. And again, you plan on basically opening up the second floor. Right now, the walls the walls are kind of slanted. You're going to even those out
Yes.
and have some extra rooms up there.
Yes,
Okay. But you're not actually building the building out. You're not expanding the footprint.
no,
All right. Now, if we look at A2, does that show an overhead of the building?
correct,
And I think, as Mr. McMahon mentioned earlier, there's not a whole lot of parking in the front, correct?
correct,
So we plan to add some parking to the rear of the building? Is
Correct.
that the all right.
correct.
So let's go through this a little bit. First, we'll talk about what you're doing with the building, then we'll go through the play area and the parking. All right, so the actual building itself, when we're adding the second floor, or scratch that, when we're expanding the existing second floor, you're proposing to have essentially 4 larger playrooms. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. There's going to be 3 rooms, 1 for each age group.
Yes.
And then what's the 4th room going to be?
The fourth room will be a play area, indoor play area.
Okay. Now, that indoor play area is going to be about 270 square feet.
Correct.
So the actual exterior of the building, which I think that's where the variances we're asking for involved. So let's talk about that for a little bit. So let's go to A3, the last page. So this was something that that your architect compiled, correct?
Correct.
All right, so in the back you see, to the back left of the building, that's going to be the play area that you're proposing?
Correct.
It's going to be 988 square feet?
Correct.
That's going to be fenced in, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, next to that, let's go through the parking here. There's going to be 3 spaces in the rear. Is that what we're looking for?
Correct.
All right, and I know this one says that one will be an ADA space. We've yet to determine which space is going to be the handicap accessible space.
Correct.
However, the 3 spaces in the rear you're proposing, that's going to be employee-only parking, right?
Yes.
And then the front, there's 4 additional spaces. Now that will be, if there's another employee who needs to park there, fine. There's going to be a designated pickup and drop-off area.
Yes.
Okay. Now, earlier in my opening, you heard me mention to the board that you have 7 designated spaces, which are going to be marked here on this plan. But that there's pretty much going to be an 8th de facto space. So let's walk them through that. So if you look at A1, the first page of the packet, this is a picture of the building before you bought it. Is that right?
Correct.
And you see on the right side, that's where the alleyway goes that goes to the back of your property.
Correct.
All right, and there's a fence there right now. You see that?
Yes.
You're going to maintain some sort of a fence there, correct?
Correct.
All right, and that's going to be just an extra safety feature just in case one of the children gets out of the play area, right?
Correct.
But also, because only employees are parking to the rear, you're not going to have that open for employees to come and go, correct?
Correct.
So you imagine that if there's a need for spillover, pick up and drop off parking, that a parent may park there for a minute or 2 to pick up a kid.
Correct.
Okay. So that would be that additional potential space.
Right.
Now, the other benefit that we're looking at here too, because we've talked about the play area, we've talked about the parking. In terms of the general area around your business, there's Patrick's Pub to the one side, right?
Correct.
And then yes,
Yes.
a public adjuster to the other.
Yes.
So in terms of your business, do you feel that your business, your busy times, are going to be the same as the busy times for Patrick's Pub?
No.
You don't think they're going to be busy at 7, 8 a.m. when people are dropping off children?
Are they? No.
No? Okay.
No.
So if there's ever, you don't see an instance where a car is going to be queuing up down Bristol Pike to get to your daycare, correct?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Now, you need 2 variances, one for the play area and one for the parking, correct?
Correct.
Is there any reason that we sit here tonight that you think that our requested relief will be detrimental or bad for the local community?
No.
Have you had a chance, or you know that we had to provide notice to your neighbors?
Correct.
Did any of your neighbors approach you or ask any questions about this?
No.
All right, and you know that the owner of the public adjustment company, that they called my office and we talked about it, and they don't oppose our project.
Correct.
Right? All right. So with that, if the board has any questions, we'd be more than happy to address those.
Yeah, what would the hours be from 7 to what?
7 to 6.
6? I have a question. How are you going to access the parking spaces in the back? Driving through that alley?
Yes.
So is it going to be blacktopped?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And I believe the electrical contractor kept work vans in the back too.
My only concern is it's very tight. I used to plow that parking lot, and so I know it very, very well. I don't know how you're going to turn a car around back there to get out.
Yeah, and that's something that we've been looking at too. And obviously, if we'll be working with township professionals on this one. If we have to obtain a traffic engineer to help us out to make sure that the angles are good and everything. We're going to do that.
All right, so right next to it is Patrick's Pub. And if you're under the belief that Patrick's Pub at 11, 12, 1 o'clock is not getting patrons, you're sadly mistaken. I'll tell you that right now. So if you look at Patrick's Pub and you watch, like, those parking spots in front of your business will be used by people from Patrick's Pub. I guarantee it. It happens all the time. So I don't know where. If you look next to your building, you see your building and then Patrick's Pub's right next to it, and in between is a space in between there. Where is the property line designation between 515 and Patrick's Pub?
So if we
There's like a fence, like a little fence there
Right.
on the side.
if we look at A2, there's you can kind of see where there's a line between Patrick's Pub and our property. There is an existing fence there, and if you carry it through to the front, the one you can see it's kind of a marked space that starts with our property.
So that fence does not separate those parking spots out in front of 515 and Patrick's Pub's parking spots.
Correct, it doesn't.
Right. Okay.
And I understand what you're saying about that, and if at some point it becomes an issue, then yes, we'll put up some sort of additional divider to make things clear. And I understand that Patrick's Pub is busier in the afternoon time too, but the benefits to our business is it's literally only busy in the early hours of the morning, and then when parents are picking up their children between 3 and 6. So during the most of the day, there's going to be zero coming and going from our site.
Did you speak with the owner of Patrick's Pub?
We talked.
Yeah, and he's
talked.
fine with.
He didn't mention nothing, opposing anything.
All right, anybody else have any questions?
I just want to make it clear, if the board grants the relief that you're seeking, you agree as a condition to such approval, Monday through Fridays, no weekends, right? Maximum 24 children, ages 1 to 5, no babies. And your hours are going to be 7 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Correct.
You agree to all that as condition of approval?
Yes, sir. And one of the reasons why we're saying no babies is obviously babies require more attention, more employees. And by focusing on slightly older children, we're hoping to keep the amount of employees that we need down lower, because obviously parking is one of the issues here. And we also know that if, for whatever reason, our plans does not work from an engineering perspective, and we can't fit that many parking spaces safely in the rear while still maintaining that size play area, we know that we would have to come back for additional relief. So we understand that.
Do you already have an existing business somewhere else?
No.
So if you already bought this property.
Correct.
Right. So if you don't get relief on these variances, then what?
I have to sell it.
Anybody else have any questions? Bob, anything to add?
Bryce, with the new proposed parking, did you run any impervious calculations?
Impervious calculations, from what we understand, the back of the property is already impervious. It's crushed stone. So we're not planning on adding any additional impervious. And like I said, if for whatever reason we have to, if there's some area that we need to gravel over or pave over that's not already impervious, then we know that we'll have to come back before you. Okay. Based on my review of the property, it seems like we're already over the impervious, so anything additional would require relief.
What about the blacktop that you're going to put in? Is that going to increase the impervious surface?
We don't plan on putting blacktop over anything that is not already crushed stone and already impervious. Okay. And we know that, again, if we do, we'll have to come back and request.
Previous question that I believe Ed asked, what are you going to do in that? And I believe your client said that she was going to put blacktop in.
Yes.
Okay. All right. But then Ken just asked you if it's not going to do anything with the impervious.
Let me ask, Giovanni, that alleyway from the front of the property to the back, is that already crushed stone?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's our understanding that if we're putting blacktop over something that is already crushed stone, that we would not be adding to the impervious, we would just be changing an impervious surface that's already there. That's our understanding.
So you're representing to the board that your application does not include an additional variance for excess impervious surface?
Correct, yes.
And if it does, you'll come back, is what you're saying?
Exactly, yes.
You'd have to come back.
100%.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Anybody from the audience like to come up for or against this project? All right. I need a motion to accept or deny this application.
I make a motion to deny.
Do I have a motion to accept this application? Okay, then, that's the case, then I need a second on denial of this application.
I'll second.
I need, Mr. Secretary, call the board, please.
So let's make sure we're clear on what you're voting on. So if you say yes, you're denying it.
That's correct.
Clear about that?
Yes. Andy Gorilla,
Yes.
Mark DeMarcus,
Yes.
Jim McMahon,
Yes.
Colleen Dunn,
Yes.
Ed Murphy, yes.
Sorry.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay, AARAV Investments LLC, 963 Street Road, second floor, Southampton, PA. Please come on up.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. May I hand up
Melons?
our certifications?
Thank you.
First name is David.
We're good to go.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Board. My name is David Shafkowitz. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant, ARAV Foods, or ARAV Investments LLC. They are the owner of the parcel of property known as 399 Bristol Road. The property is located in the Township C Commercial District. It is currently improved with a vacant bank building and drive-through of approximately 3,300 square feet in size. The property in total is about a half acre, 24,000 square feet. With the bank, there's a parking field that contains approximately somewhere between 36 to 40 parking spaces, depending on the configuration. The property is currently surrounded on 3 sides by public streets. As noted, it's fronts on Bristol Road, but it's fronts on Bristol Road. It has access on Clover Avenue on one side and the Chamonix Road on the other. The owner is seeking to redevelop the property, and if we have an aerial plan on the screen, but I also believe you guys have the package with that stuff in it as well. Is seeking to redevelop the property into 2 uses, with no expansion of the existing building, modifications to the parking, reduction in impervious cover, to a quick service restaurant known as Checkers, which maybe the board is familiar with, and a standard neighborhood convenience store. The Checkers will take about 1,100 square feet of the 3,300. The convenience store will take the balance. Part of the Checkers, if the board is familiar with the Checkers operation is a quick service restaurant with no indoor seating. It's purely drive-through and drive-up for pickup. Accordingly, as part of the project that we're proposing is because of our existing parking field is limited in size to the existing parking spaces that are there, We are seeking a variance tonight to, just on the parking, for the board's consideration of reducing the parking from what would be permitted at, I believe, 46 parking spaces, 44 parking spaces, to 33 that exist. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Part of what else is being proposed as the Checkers is a little outdoor seating area. Outdoor seating area has about 16 seats. As pursuant to the ordinance, that would require about 8 parking spaces. There's going to be 6 full-time employees for the Checkers. That would make the parking approximately 14. The convenience store, which is going to be about 2,100 square feet, would require about 18 parking spaces, but that only has two full-time employees at its peak. The property also suffers from a few existing nonconformities with regard to setbacks and the like that had existed when the property was developed as a bank. But I think in designing this particular project and looking at the particular uses that are proposed for the site, hopefully the board will see that the uses are scaled to meet not only the size of the property, but the parking demand that is provided for on the site. So having said that, I don't know if the board has any preliminary questions. If we can move on to our witness.
I just want to be clear, what relief are you seeking?
We're seeking, the ordinance requires 44 parking spaces. We're proposing 33.
Bottom line. Bottom line.
Bottom line,
Is that for the Checkers or for the convenience store?
for both.
And
If we can go back to the site plan.
what about the outdoor seating? First you said there is no seating in the restaurant, which is understood, but what?
There's an area that's provided to the left of the building if you're facing on Bristol Road, which will provide for seasonal outdoor seating for the people who do happen to drive up, but that would be for the warmer part of the year, not for all year long. Thank you, Al.
So there's 2 drive-through lanes already existing at the bank, correct?
Correct.
Right, so you're doing away with one?
Yeah, so part of the proposal on the stacking lane, which I probably should have mentioned, is that the applicant is proposing 2 stacking lanes that merge into one. There is a bypass lane that would allow people to go out to Neshaminy Road. Also, that bypass lane would be used for trash removal. There's 12 cars, room for 12 cars in the stacking lane before they get to Clover. What we'll have is Mr. Federico, our expert tonight, who's also a traffic engineer, can talk about how those calculations will work and why we believe that there's more than sufficient stack for the proposed use. Yeah, so essentially, I guess what the bank had is 2 lanes that went out into Bristol. We're going to bring them down to 1 so we can allow for the bypass. Well, actually, kind of like a double bypass, one that goes around from Clover into the parking lot, and then one that would allow you to, if you're not going to merge in and there's something wrong with your order, you can also go around the drive-through lane.
So that can in a way possibly add to your parking spots?
It's a good question. It's actually a really good question because the geometry would be my engineer's thing, not my thing. But I don't know how much, when they come around the second, or the northern, let's call it, second lane and merge into the first, how much radius the cars will need to turn into that. But one of the things that we've done is we've eliminated 1 or 2 spaces to improve the circulation in the parking lot. The way it was designed, I'm not sure if it was a dead-end parking in the 2 rows. So now there's a circulation pattern that allow people to go through the parking lot. You know, if they enter through Neshaminy, they can come in, park, and then go around and come out, or vice versa. So that's where the
Well, let's bring them up.
yeah, I know he's got a few things that he needs to explain to you guys. So I'm not not under any misimpressions here. And luckily, Mr. Federico's very talented.
I love traffic study guys.
Oh yeah, they'll tell you everything you want to hear, right? So Al, why don't you come up and be sworn? And after you're sworn, you can give the board the benefit of your background.
You can use that one then.
Thank you.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. is I'll ask Mr. Federico to identify first.
This is my curriculum vitae.
We'll mark that as applicant's exhibit A1, and then I guess we can mark the plans and such thereafter. Al, why don't you review your CV for the board?
Thank you. Yeah, good evening, Al Federico. I am a graduate of the Penn State University with a degree in civil engineering. My practice has spanned municipal and traffic engineering for longer than I'd like to admit in public, but somewhere getting close to 30 years. Currently, I am a principal of my own firm that specializes in traffic engineering. In the course of my practice, I have worked for numerous municipalities. I did HOP reviews for PennDOT for 8 years. Also do work for development projects.
Al, what about the benefit of your educational background and licenses?
I am licensed to practice engineering in Pennsylvania, Delaware, and Florida. I am also a certified professional traffic operations engineer through ITA. Thank you.
So Al, why don't you give the board a brief overview of the property, and then we can, I'm sure they're dying to hear about all the details on parking and traffic and stacking. So just a little overview at the start, and then we can dive into that stuff.
Sure. As Dave explained earlier, the site is accessed. There are two entrances, one off of Clover, one off of Neshaminy. There is also an exit to Neshaminy, as well as the exit from the drive-through that currently goes to Bristol Pike. With respect to parking, there is some parking that is currently to the rear of the building that really, for a drive-through use, those spaces look like they would be regularly obstructed, potentially by vehicles in the drive-through lane. Those are being removed. Additionally, 3 other spaces on the edge of the parking field closest to the building are being removed, 1 to improve circulation and 2 to help provide some landscaping and the outdoor seating. As David indicated, this is an existing site that these gentlemen are trying to do an adaptive reuse to fill the vacant bank. The building, my understanding as of today, the only real addition modifications to the building, I think there's going to be some square footage for a vestibule up at the entrance on Bristol Pike, but that's, my understanding is nominal, maybe about 70 square feet. The rest of the existing building is going to be partitioned between the Checkers use and then a very small neighborhood convenience retail. So when we get to the parking, the zoning code as it's presented, if we start with the restaurant use, it seems to be, if I was to speculate, written primarily for restaurants with indoor seating. If you read the language of the code, that it's either 1 parking space for every 50 square feet of restaurant gross floor area, or 1 space for every 2 seats, I believe it is, for fast food, and then employee spaces. For a use like this that does not actually have indoor seating, that is a high number of parking spaces. They are anticipating that the largest shift will have 6 employees. So aside from that, there's really anticipated to be nominal parking, maybe people that are going to just park and walk up to the pickup window. In nicer weather, you do have the 16 seats that are shown out there. But if we were to base this strictly on the seats and say those are the 16 seats, then we would need 6 stalls for the employees, as well as 8 for the seating. That would be 14. However, the way the code reads, this is either or. So if you go to the square footage, which is in this case primarily kitchen and storage area, you come up with a requirement of 28 spaces for this use, which is, for if anybody's been to a Checkers, I first ran into them when I was down in Florida. They really don't have a lot of parking demand. Similarly, with the retail, the requirement for retail is one space per 150 square feet. That's about 6 2/3 spaces per 1,000 square feet. This is a very small retail store. There is not anticipated to be, enough turnover in that at any one point that you would need that many spaces. In anticipation of this,
The retail, 2,000 square feet, is that what you said?
yes,
So just rough math, if you add up the retail square footage, what's required,
Mhm.
and the 16 outdoor spaces, which pretty much could be used probably 8 months of the year,
you would need 34.
what do you have?
I'm sorry, you would need 32. We're proposing 33.
In other words, if you factor in the fact that a fair portion of the space is not going to be used for patronage, if you will,
Correct.
you feel you meet your opinion is you would meet the requirements of the parking. But if you put the space in gross, you wouldn't, correct?
Correct. Mr. Solicitor, then one other thing I probably would ask Mr. Federico to further articulate that point is, Al, can you tell the board a little bit about the ITE standards, what they are and how they would apply to this particular use?
So the Institute of Transportation Engineers, normally we talk about them, they do their trip generation manual, and the traffic study we're doing that's going to get submitted to PennDOT and the township and reviewed, we talk about the trip generation, but they also provide a parking generation manual, which is a compilation of studies nationally for parking of different uses. The average parking that's been documented for retail uses is approximately 2 spaces per 1,000 square feet. For a restaurant with drive-through, and they really don't provide a parking data for drive-through and no indoor seating. But if you're just looking at your typical fast food restaurant with drive-through, they would say that the average demand for parking is just under 9 spaces per 1,000 square feet. So if we applied that, to this site, you say somewhere around 18 spaces would be the average demand for the parking, well below what is being proposed for this.
Mr. Federico, I had one thought as we were talking about the employee demand and the like, especially for the convenience store. We have maximum shift of 2 employees. The owner's going to own and operate both the Checkers and the convenience store. Is that your understanding?
That is what I've been told, yes.
That area that you said that was behind the building, is that possible that we can designate that as employee-only parking, and that way they would have control of when those people can come in and leave, so it wouldn't conflict with the stacking area?
That is conceivable. I would defer that to the site engineer, who's not here tonight, if there's any other aspect of that. But the area that, if you look at an aerial right behind the bank coming off of Clover, you see there's 4 spots there under existing conditions.
So there's going to be no spillover on Clover Avenue?
I do not expect so, based on the trip generation from ITE. Too much paper, I apologize. We're anticipating 26 entering vehicles during the evening peak hour. That's over the course of an hour. The service time, similar with much in this type of industry, is a 3-minute service time per vehicle. And that's not, 3 minutes, then you let another one in. There's clearly some overlap. Based on the guidelines for Checkers, they're anticipating 1 minute at the menu board, which leaves then 2 minutes for the person to get to the window and for their order to be completed. So even on a straight, linear, the 26 shouldn't be a problem. I mean, if 12 people show up at once, but we wouldn't expect half the hourly traffic to show up all at once. It'll be staggered a bit.
Clear again. So on your application, the 44 parking stalls that are required, that's based on the gross square footage?
Yes, sir.
So some of which, or a good portion of which, is dedicated to storage and what else?
Storage, counter space, restrooms, yeah, kitchen area.
How much square foot does that total? What's the aggregate, let's say, non-patronage square footage?
In the checkers, none of it is patronage. It's all working area.
That's 1,000 square feet, right?
Yes. In the retail space, we were talking about that earlier. They do not have a layout, but I believe what I was being told was there'd probably going to be 500 at least square feet of counter space and area, as well as other storage area. It's not going to be a big retail floor that's going to accommodate a large number of people.
And Mr. Solicitor, we don't anticipate, for purposes of this type of convenience store, to have like a deli, to have other food alternatives that would compete in any way with Checkers. It's more of just sodas, snacks, cigarettes, that kind of stuff, and maybe even complement the Checkers in some way. So if somebody's coming to either through the drive-through or park and does a pickup, they can run into the convenience store, get milk, get eggs, and then hopefully travel home too.
So the retail has nothing to do with the drive-through whatsoever?
No, nothing
All
whatsoever.
walk-in?
All walk-in.
Sir.
And the other thing, Al, that we didn't cover in detail, and I'm sure the board's mostly interested in parking and stacking and those, like everything related to the relief, but there are other improvements proposed by the applicant, such as landscaping, some of the changes to the parking lot. There's a reduction in impervious cover. Talk a little bit about that.
Primarily, I would suggest that the primary improvement, right now, the site is about 98% impervious. So as part of these modifications, there's going to be some additional landscaping and green area that'll bring it down to 92%.
So no slight triangle problems, Bristol Pike and Clover, right?
Our site design engineer promises he can address all those. The one thing I'm sure that we can confirm is that we are going to be bringing this project, should we be lucky enough to be successful tonight, for land development approval too. Yeah, it's absolutely land development. We got a preliminary review already from Gilmore and from Pannoni, and there was very few things in there as we refine the project that we can't comply with. So.
Yeah, I would note that Clover, if I have my orientation right, is one way in. So the site, while the structure, and that's an existing nonconformity, no one's looking out to through that triangle.
Okay.
Have you talked to any of the neighbors?
I personally have not.
No, anybody?
Mr. Grillo, we did send the notices out. I don't know if, one thing I did want to introduce, Milan Patel is here. He's the principal in the operation, in case there was questions about the operation. But maybe we have him sworn in and he can answer your question if he had an opportunity to speak to any neighbors.
Was there any objection from the neighbors?
No.
Even though they're not here?
Swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. You state your name and spell it, please, for the record.
Milin Patel, M-I-L-I-N. Last name is Patel, P-A-T-E-L.
Thank you.
Now, Milan, the question that was asked is, did you receive any objections or any notifications from any of the neighbors regarding what's proposed?
I personally have spoken with a couple neighbors, the business neighbors, as in 7-Eleven, the next door there is a auto repair shop. Across the street, there is, pizza stores and everything, just to have an idea of the neighborhood and, how, the business are doing. And we discussed with them that we are bringing a Checkers here with the retail store, and everybody was excited, but I haven't got a chance to talk to the residents and neighbors yet.
I mean, I live in that neighborhood. I live maybe a block from there. Because I know that Clover, it's very, very tight trying to drive down that street, especially that section right there by the bank where the auto shop is. You know, I can sometimes barely get through. So that's a concern of.
Well, if I may, because maybe I'm just a little bit more in tune with the question you're asking and maybe how to answer it. One of the issues that we're always concerned about is when do we get to the point where we have enough stacking? And we'll only know 100% for sure when the store opens and we see, hopefully they do well. The idea is the 12 cars that are proposed to be able to just sit in the driveways are supposed to be enough based on everything Mr. Federico looks at from his manuals and the like, right? But we don't know practically. But the one thing that's good about the way this designed with the 2 bypass lanes is Mr. Patel could instruct his staff, or when he's there, is that if it is getting to that point during peak, he can ask the people that are making their orders or from the window where they make their orders is to move into the parking area and to make sure that there is no backup into Clover. So it allow, and that's purposefully the way we change the circulation to allow people to have access to that from those drive-throughs instead of getting stuck in there like they did with the bank.
And also our busy time, you know, we usually have a stack of, 5 to 6 cars at a time in any given Checkers. So, I mean, I've been in the Checkers for the last 10 years. We currently own and operate a store in Philadelphia, which does $1.2 to $1.5 million in the sales. And, we have about, 5, 6 cars at the same time. And the time of the stacking is, from 11:30 to 2:30, which is a lunch time. And then the dinner time, which is 5 p.m. to 7 or 8 p.m. So those are the, 2, day part of the, timing. We're looking at maybe the 5, 6, maybe maximum the 8 cars per stacking. I mean, 12 cars, we're looking at is a decent, based on the Checkers model.
12 cars an hour, correct?
No, at the same time, sorry.
No, what we're saying is that there is room for 12 cars to be waiting for the drive-through window on the site without extending into Clover Avenue. Anticipating 26 an hour during the evening peak, total over the course of the hour, I do very unlikely that you're going to get more than 12 showing up at once and everybody backing up. The 26 cars will come staggered over the course of an hour. So we'd expect that with the service times that they operate at, it will not create a situation where it will extend back into Clover Avenue and impact traffic coming into the neighborhood.
Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Patel? Go ahead, Colleen.
So you do not anticipate the people visiting your convenience store to sit in the outside seating areas? You're not going to serve like sandwiches, soups, nothing like that to where they can unwrap it and sit down and eat there, therefore causing those 16 seats to be full at most times?
I mean, for Checkers, yes.
But I believe what was being asked about the convenience store. Sorry. On the convenience side, we had represented to the board there'd be no deli, no prepared foods.
No, there is no food going to be in the convenience side because only the Checkers side.
So that won't result in somebody ordering, say, a sandwich or some other food product from the convenience store and sitting in the outside seating area? Correct.
Are you willing to mark that seating for Checkers only?
Yes.
Yes.
So your convenience store is not going to have any food?
No, we're not going to have any food.
Sure you are.
Well,
I mean, chips and, pre-packed food, the chips.
Chips,
not
eggs,
like
milk.
prepared,
Yeah.
not to be made to order food.
You agree you're not preparing sandwiches like a Wawa?
No, definitely not.
That's a good question, though. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's not the point, Colleen. I don't think Colleen's making the point that if you go in convenience store, buy a bag of chips and a soda, you still can sit there and eat.
Absolutely.
That's why I asked if they agree as a condition, you
Right.
mark the area for Checkers only.
Right.
Are you agreeable to that?
Yes.
You're right, you can't tell someone not to sit down.
That's right. That's
Right. I mean, you can just put aside, right?
Coffee, right? You sit down,
Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Patel? Yeah, we're going to give you a chance. soon as they're done with their presentation, then they're gonna have you come up. Okay, thank you, Mr. Patel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I think we're done with our main portion of our presentation. We just moved for the admission of our exhibits. And obviously, after public comment, if there's any more questions we can ask or have answered, we'll obviously be happy to. Appreciate that.
So moved. Let's, Bob, how about, you wanna, any,
No, nothing, Jim.
okay. All right, now it's, anybody from the audience would like to come up? Please come up, state your name, let's get sworn in. Address for the record too, please.
You're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
State your name and spell it.
Nicole Jones, NICOLE, JONES, and my address is 115 Clover Avenue. I'd like to start out by saying I'm not against this property, but as the homeowner directly behind it, I do have some concerns, mainly being the fence. I was only notified of this hearing tonight by, I'm assuming, your law firm. I didn't have any contact information to get in touch with anyone, but that fence has been a thorn in my side for years. The bank owned that fence. They were responsible for maintaining it. Numerous times over the years, it broke. It's not connected at the bottom. It's attached to a piece of wood. The concrete where the metal posts went in has cracked and broken, and one time the fence blew halfway down during a windstorm. This past year, another one of the part of the concrete wall was cracked. I had to keep calling the realtor to have somebody come out and fix it. I didn't want the fence blowing down again. So now my concern is with Checkers being open on the weekends and evenings, am I gonna be able to enjoy myself in my yard? Like, there's not much privacy. It's basically a chain link fence with some green slats in it. And I'm wondering if Checkers is going to provide a nice privacy fence.
Bob, is that considered a buffer, what they have there now, or no?
In their land development process, they'll have to add a buffer
Right.
or come code compliant with a buffer, along with maintaining the fence and fixing it.
Okay.
But the fence itself will have to have some kind of buffering with it.
On the Clover side and the Jacqueline McWade property also in the parking lot, right, or no?
I don't think the Clover side, because that might cause a site issue, but.
No, I mean, Nicole's, Miss Jones's property, and then right next to where the parking lot is, on the Neshaminy Road side, there's the Jacqueline McWade property, that's gotta be buffered too.
Correct, yep.
Correct, okay, all right. So, you understand what they're proposing, that there's gonna be some kind of buffer, like trees, bushes, but you guys are willing to maintain and fix the fence?
We could probably go one step further, Mr. Chairman. I mean, our client will probably gonna replace the fence. My guess is something more of a private white vinyl, privacy fence type of thing. If Ms. Jones is present during the land development stuff, or we can get in touch with her. One of the things that a lot of developers don't think about is that if she's okay, we can maybe plant trees on her side of the fence as well, in addition, to create a further sound buffer from any of these other issues. That's the only that will work.
So, Ms. Jones, after the hearing, then you can get in touch talk to these guys and get their information. All right.
Okay.
I mean, any other questions, or?
No, I mean, like, the fence was my main concern. I mean, we've always lived next to a business, but it's just, like I said, the bank wasn't open at night or on the weekends, and we had some sort of privacy.
So they're willing to take care of that?
Okay, thank
right.
you. Oh, I have to get your contact information. There's nothing on this letter. It's just a notice of the hearing and the name of the investment company. There was nothing else.
I'll make sure you have it.
Okay,
When we do the land development, we'll get it.
okay, great, thank you.
Right, so, they accept.
Right, so, okay. So you agree as a condition of approval, if the board grants the approval, that you will address this fence issue?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Mr. Solicitor, I believe my client will probably end up taking that fence down, replacing it with something newer. I don't want to commit him to white vinyl privacy fence, but usually that's the standard. The chain link looks crappy anyway, and it probably needs to come down. And we'll call Ms. Jones along that way, and when the landscaping plan is further developed through the land development process, You know, if there's room on her side of the fence, we could probably include some evergreens, and then on our side of the fence as well, assuming there's room.
So you're willing to address it, you're not saying exactly how you're gonna address it?
Absolutely willing to address it, yeah, absolutely.
All right, anybody have one last question they'd like to, or? All right, then I need a motion from the board to accept or deny this application.
I'll make a motion to accept.
I need a second.
I'll second.
Mr. Secretary, call the board, please.
Andy Guerrilla. Yes. Mark DeMarcus.
Yes.
Jim McMahon.
Yes.
Colleen Dunn.
Yes.
Ed Murphy, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, thank you, board members.
There you go.
Hopefully you enjoy your Valentine's Day now.
We'll be there for a burger.
We'll invite you to the grand opening for sure.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Real quick, guys.
Motion to adjourn?
Just make sure you keep your stuff from the application of number 3, so we have it for next month. And then, yes, all in favor of the motion to adjourn?
Aye.
Those opposed, meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Not as bad as I thought.